I was born to work, driven to work. It's part of who I am. So I was fortunate that I carved a reputation of working hard, delivering, being results orientated.
Welcome to the Redefining Midlife podcast. I'm Jo Clark and I'm so glad you're here. And this is a podcast for women who are ready to break free from outdated stereotypes, rediscover themselves, and embrace the endless opportunities that midlife brings. Each week, I'll share expert advice, actionable strategies, and inspiring conversations with incredible women who are redefining what it means to thrive in midlife and beyond. From health and wellness to reigniting your purpose and passions, this is your go-to podcast for feeling empowered, supported, and seen. And midlife isn't the end. It's your time to shine, rewrite your story, and create a life that you truly love. So let's get started. A very big welcome to the Redefining Midlife podcast, Jacquie. It is lovely to talk to you all the way from London.
It's wonderful to be here. I'm having a great morning so far, and I hope you're enjoying your evening over there.
Yes, it's quite odd because it's going to be a good day ahead for you. We've had a fabulous day here in Australia, so I hope that follows through with you over in London as well. Now, there is much to talk about with regards to your incredible passion with all that you do to raise the opportunities and the visibility of midlife women in the area of marketing, the workplace, and society in general. And although your work is actually based in the UK, there is much that we can learn about what you do to help all around the world on this particular area. But before we delve into your career, the twists and turns it's taken over the years, I would love for us to get to know you just that little bit more. We didn't get to chat about your earlier years when we had a discussion pre this recording, but you did tell me that you're writing a memoir and that you're actually working on podcasts around that memoir. So I'm absolutely fascinated to hear some of the stories of your earlier life, because I know there's going to be some good ones in amongst them. So could you just tell us a little bit about your earlier years, where you grew up, and what life was like for you as a child?
Absolutely. Well, it was a very privileged upbringing, I have to say. So for your audience, I was born and bred in North London, and when you tend to be born one side of the river, you kind of be committed to that. So I always describe myself as that I'm North London born and bred. I'm a mad Arsenal football fan, so I moved to an area called Angel, which is where the stadium is nearby. So I'm actually very sad supporter that I walked to the stadium, and I'm absolutely thrilled and delighted to be able to do that. I was brought up in a very posh part of London, which is called Hampstead, and I am the third youngest daughter of two parents who were both doctors. So I came from a background and upbringing where you were supposed to do well at school, be very academic, go to university, get a degree, and certainly go into the professions. So my elder sister was medically qualified. My middle sister is a GP. However, the buck kind of stopped with me in terms of throwing that kind of, view and mission straight out the window. I was not academic. I was a rebel, the black sheep of the family for sure, and I very much carved my own path. What was fascinating, I think, to find out many decades later is really the understanding of why I was that black sheep and why I was that rebel. The podcast that you mentioned, Jo, it's reflecting on a memoir that I wrote during lockdown, and the memoir is entitled "Take Her, She's Yours." And the basis behind the memoir is that I had a mother who I describe as being evil. She had narcissistic personality disorder, and I was absolutely the focus of her vitriol and her fury, I guess, because I was not born a boy. I was the last hope of having a boy brought into the family, and obviously I clearly failed on that one. But it was interesting to find out, as I said, many decades later, that I actually, there was a massive question mark over who was the father of said child that was born in 1965. So when the revelations came, finding out, it kind of, all the jigsaw pieces fell into place in terms of why I was such a stigma to the family and why I was perceived in such a negative light. And I think that writing, it took me just over a year to write. It was during lockdown that I wrote it. And people have said to me, oh, it must be very cathartic in terms of that you were writing this. Did it kind of cleanse a lot of the kind of the demons around me? And it was absolutely not, because I felt that and I include my father in this, that my parents lost the right to be respected as parents when I was a very, very young person. So it wasn't cathartic, but it was great fun. There's a lot of Black humour in it. I can't wait for it to be released, which I hope is going to be in early 2025. And the reason why I did it really is because two things. So many of my friends said, Jacquie, you've just got to write this down because your stories are utterly sad but hysterically funny at the same time. But also, too, it's very interesting that having said that, I've been doing this and I've been writing this, so many women have come up to me and said, my mother was like that. My mother was like that. And so I think that it's not a therapy book, but I think that if women who've had these issues and had these terrible relationships, if they can get some kind of breakthrough or light bulb moment or solace or energy through reading it, that it kind of reflects back on them to understand they are not the problem. They are not the problem. And if we kind of scrape that surface and just affect positively a few women, then I feel it's worth having done that in the first place.
Yeah. Jacquie, did your sisters notice that when you were, that you were being picked on and targeted when you were a young girl?
Well, it's a really interesting question, Jo, because they absolutely didn't. And I think it's because my angel, my savior, my rescuer was my nanny employed to look after me when we were growing up. So as I said, both my parents were doctors, they were working. We were very privileged. So we had a nanny. And prior to this glorious woman called Edith, and prior to me being born, there was a kind of a revolving door of nannies that came and went. But Edith arrived a year before I was born. And the reason why I've called the memoir Take Her, She's Yours is because when I was 3 days old and Edith came to visit my mother and me in the hospital, and my mother, when Edith walked into the room, my mother was looking out the window and she just said to Edith, take her, she's yours, flicking her hand in my general direction. So I was born on the Thursday and my mother went back to work on the Monday. And Edith, I think, was quite horrified. I can understand why, that this is what my mother said to me. That she witnessed, it was Edith who witnessed the bad behaviors. It was Edith who witnessed all the antics that my mother got up to. And it was Edith that sacrificed her life because she felt that she couldn't possibly leave me and leave my sisters knowing what was going on behind closed doors. So she stayed until I was 11 years old. And what kind of woman would do that? And she was my Mary Poppins. I always say that. She was my Sound of Music, Maria. We often talked about it in later years that she saved me and made me the person who I am today. But my sisters didn't. One was 3.5 years older, the other one was 7 years older. How they viewed me is that they felt I was a spoilt brat because Edith was the one who protected me.
Is that right? How interesting. So have you had I'm just out of interest sake, have you had conversations with your sisters in more recent times to bring their awareness to what happened to you back when you were a young child?
We absolutely did. The revelations about my mother were really disclosed only in 2009, which is obviously quite recent years. I am the one that was spoken to by an agony aunt bizarrely, who wasn't qualified, he said, I think your mother's got narcissistic personality disorder. And I looked up the traits, and there are 15 of them, and she had all 15. So I texted my sisters to say, I think this is it. And we were all just like, wow. And I think for my middle sister, who idolized my mother, it was I think even to this day, she finds it very difficult to reconcile in terms of how she could have, how thinking that I think defaultly human beings believe that we're a really good judge of character. And so to have that completely blown out the water, that you could have got it so wrong about somebody, I think takes a lot of time to process. And I think it takes a lot of time to self-reflect in terms of how could I have got it so wrong that I thought she was this person and actually she was quite the opposite. So it's been tough on her. But my eldest sister and I, no, not a surprise. Didn't take it in our stride, but my goodness me, it as I said, the pieces have fallen into place, and it makes us understand more about ourselves as a consequence, which has been a good thing.
Yes, yeah, well, it would be. And thank you for sharing that, because that's a very personal and deep story. And I know you've written a memoir and you're going to be talking about it further, but just thank you also for sharing it here with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I think that it is, the hard knocks that you have. I mean, one of the other things too is that when you read about my upbringing, you think, good grief, you are so lucky. You've had such a privileged upbringing. You've had all this materialistic wealth and opportunities. But I would have given, and I know it's kind of cliche, but I certainly would have given all that back to have been loved. And my parents never, ever, ever told me that they loved me. I knew that my dog loved me because she was always there for me. And I knew that Edith absolutely loved me because she always told me. But my parents never told me that they loved me. And I think that it just goes to show that unconditional love supersedes everything. And if you can get it, I was lucky that I got it from my nanny. But it's really important, because that what knits you together as an individual human being. And to be deprived of that is terrible. It's a terrible thing to bestow upon your own flesh and blood. It really is quite shocking. And being a mother myself, I can't comprehend it.
That was going to be my next question. How has that shaped you as a mother? And well, obviously made you determined not to be anything like that.
Well, I think that that's the thing. I think that that there are hurdles that you are faced with, but knowing that you're bringing people into this world, and that you have been deprived of that kind of given right to be loved, I think it makes it very focused in terms of how you operate. Don't get me wrong, I'm a terrible mum in many respects, I am sure. I'm sure if you want to interview my kids separately, they can give you a long list, Jo. But the one thing that I would say is, it gives me tremendous joy that my 27-year-old daughter and my 25-year-old son, their sign off with me always is love you, or will love you more. And if I get knocked down by a bus tomorrow, I've done a good job, because my kids are happy, knowing who they are, confident in terms of who they want to be, and that they are loved.
For sure. Well done you, because that would be no mean feat, having grown up with something like that and not have that role model. But thank goodness you had your wonderful nanny Edith there to help you through all of that growing stage.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Jacquie, did you have a chance to reconcile this with your mum at all?
Well, that's another fascinating question, because the one thing that because obviously I went into therapy dealing with this, and the one thing that my therapist said is that the one thing I can absolutely tell you not to do is to confront your mother about this, because it's a bit like, and I'm going to give you a topical scenario. If you had an audience with Trump and you went and told him that he's fundamentally wrong, that he's lied, that he's done all of these terrible things, how do you think that's going to go down? So with a narcissist, they would absolutely deny, they rewrite history. They would be affronted, shocked, horrified, and aghast that you could dare challenge them in terms of what they have said or what they have decreed. And it is a futile waste of time. And one of the things that I learned just through, and also the therapist said to me, you've done a brilliant job, Jacquie. You've done a brilliant job because you have protected yourself from her. And you've done that almost subconsciously, and almost it's been an innate thing, part of your DNA in terms of your self-protection mechanism. And by protecting yourself, it means that you have built this resilience, which I think, helps midlife women generally. So you've been resilient in terms of adapting and coming to terms with it. And so therefore, my default position's view of my mother is that she is not a normal, gracious human being. I never strive to perpetually try and find a way in to get her to be proud of me, to get her to love me, because I knew from a very young age that there was something evil within her. And so therefore you can't change that innate part of her character and personality. It is pointless. It is a waste of time. So therefore, don't bother. Don't waste your energy doing that. So no, I never confronted her. It would have been pointless. She would have absolutely reveled in the glory that she had got to me, that she was in my head screwing around with it. So she never got that glory opportunity. So never confronted her. And I am the better person as a consequence, I think.
Well, if that's the case, I'm so glad that you didn't give her the satisfaction, and that you're in the place that you are right now mentally, and being able to deal with all of this. Thank you for sharing again. So going back through and thinking about your more formative years through your teenage years, you the path ahead was, like for your sisters, was always going to go down in that medical path. But for you, you said that wasn't going to be your journey. Did you have it at any point an understanding or a drive or a yearning for something in particular when you were sort of a teenager, or perhaps once you'd left school?
My yearning was just to get the, am I allowed to swear in this podcast?
You go for it.
Okay. Was to get the fuck out of there. So, it was, the desire was to leave home. The desire, at that early stage, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I mean, I was sent to boarding school when I was 16. And that was perceived because I was naughty, and the reality was revealed many years later as to why I was sent away. But I was sent to boarding school. I was the only child that did. I failed my A levels, which is the exam equivalent to get into university. I ended up fucking the PE teacher, which I don't think my father felt was a really good investment of his money. And when I got my when I got my results,
I wasn't expecting to come out, but that's gold.
It was, yeah, I don't think they were very impressed. But it was, I failed my A level. I got my results on August the 19th, which is another story. And then I left home and got a job within 4 weeks. And I just wanted to get out. I became a shop girl. I worked in a fashion outlet, and hated working in retail because I hated doing the general public. But I just knew I had to get a job. I had to do something so that I could leave home and carve my own path. And it was just a brilliant opportunity for me to actually, seek my own pathway, my own drive and determination, just to be myself and see what the world could offer me.
And so how long were you in that role for, and where did it take you to next?
So I was in fashion retail for a couple of years. These were big shop brands in the UK. And I enjoyed it to a certain extent. I found it very difficult. I mean, the first job that I had, it was a very cool brand. It was a brand that is called Miss Selfridge. So it was a kind of a real cool young women's brand. I turned up on the first day wearing a twin satin pearls. I mean, I don't know what possessed me to wear the outfit that I did. Clearly, that didn't go down well with the other members of staff. And I think after about a week, one of the girls who worked on the beauty counter came up to me and she said, Jacquie, we just want to know, what are you doing here? Why, why are you working here? You sound so posh. You clearly don't need the money. You sound like the Queen. What are you doing here? And I went, I might sound like the Queen, but I don't have her money. And I've got to work like everybody else. And she's just, anyway, she's still a friend of mine. This is, that's my job in 1983, and we're still good friends. And she laughs to this day. She said, we all just thought that you were very odd, going a twin set of pearls and, just not looking the part at all. But I loved doing the camaraderie bit, working with other people. That was good fun. But I didn't enjoy, I was inquisitive. I wanted to find out how the whole fashion industry works. So the next job that I got was working in fashion wholesale. And that was, I mean, good grief. If you can survive that, you can survive anything. Hardcore, really, really hard work. But I then, my husband, who wasn't my husband at the time, we then traveled. We lived in Australia for a year in 1988, bicentenary, very privileged and honored to be there, had a great time. And then when I came back, I got a temporary job, and then I just decided I wanted to work in magazines. I wanted to work in fashion magazines. And how do I do that? So I got a job working in a trade journal called Draper's Record, which is the trade magazine that services the fashion industry. And I cut my teeth on that. And then I just wrote to all my favorite magazines. And I got an interview working on one which was called Options magazine, which is a bit like Marie Claire, which I assume you have in Oz. And the woman who interviewed me, she's a fabulous little Scottish woman called Lisa. So she interviewed me, and at the end of the interview, she said, "I want our publishing director to meet you now," which is very unusual. So I was shepherded up to the floor, walked into this very buzzy department, walked into the publisher's office, very luxurious. She was on the phone screaming at somebody, sat down. She looked at me. She asked me how I thought that I could add value to the organization. So I told her about my experience in retail, wholesale, working in the trade magazine. And she said, "Jacquie, working in advertising," she said, "advertising agency personnel, they're aggressive. They will, give you a hard time. They're hardcore." And then she looked at me and she said, "I think you can eat them up and spit them out for breakfast." And so I was shepherded back down to Lisa, and she said, "You are a black-haired version of Bette Midler. I either think you're going to be an absolute failure or a rip-roaring success, but I'm putting my money on you right now." And that's how I got into the world of media.
Wow. So people can see, like, talking to you within the first couple of minutes, you can picture what you would have been like back when you were a younger woman, because what you see now is what you would have been back then, but I dare say, a lot classier now. You're driven, you're ambitious, and people could see that in you. So what a fabulous head start that you had then, to have someone believe in you, to take
Absolutely.
you to that next stage.
I felt very, it's a very interesting thing that you've noted there, Joe, because I felt very honored to have been given that opportunity. And I wanted to prove and show to Lisa that her gamble was right, that she put her money on, she backed the right horse. And I took pride in the work that I did. I am a very maverick person. I'm non-conformist. I'm sure that there might have been times where she thought, "Good grief, did I really do the right thing?" And I was Marmite. There were people who absolutely loathed me. There were people who absolutely adored me. But I wanted to prove that I could, that I was a good person, that I was a good person. And one of the things, being deprived of that unconditional love, is that I believe very strongly that you have to earn the rights to be in the position that you're in, that you have to earn the respect. When you get promoted to a manager or director status, there are some people who think you have to respect me because I'm in this role. I absolutely didn't. I believe that you roll up your sleeves, you do the job that you are asking other people to do first, to prove to them that you can do it, that you are very, very capable and willing to do whatever it takes to make the business function, to make the magazine be published, whatever it takes. And I know that there are many, many people who, I always say that they work with me rather than for me, that if you ask anyone who works with me, that they will say Jackie's greatest skill are her, I know we say man management, but a people management skills, the empathy that I have. And I think that really has been my star quality, and that is because of how I was brought up and the love that I had from people unexpected to deliver it.
And you can see that similar thread coming through in what you're doing now, Jackie, in the way that you're advocating for women in the middle of life and doing all that you can and showing that empathetic side of you and using all of the skills that you've gathered over these years in order to push that as such a big agenda. So let's talk more about the present then. You co-founded your business, Visible Inc., with Jane Evans in 2019. Tell me a little, because in our pre-chat, you did say you and Jane are very different personalities. Tell me how you met Jane and why you both decided to create this particular business.
We are chalk and cheese. Jane, as I think I said in the pre-chat, she's a very left-wing, table-thumping, radical feminist ex-punk rocker. I am much nicer and more right-wing. So we are token opponents, I guess, if you like, but the passion is exactly the same. The route to get there is slightly different. So Jane's background is creative agency side. She is British, but her whole career was in Australia. So she really, I call her that she's the creative genius in the business that we have. So her creative skills are second to none. She's very dynamic in terms of she's prolific in terms of the ideas and the creative angles and the ideas that she comes up with and how that translates in terms of her communications. And I think that there's a kind of borderline between creative genius and batshit crazy. And I think the great thing about how we work so well together is that my job is to kind of capture the creative ideas that she has, the ones that got legs, and we can run with it. And just allow her to just flow all of these ideas, and we just kind of capture the best ones. We were introduced by a mutual colleague that had worked with Jane decades before and had worked with me very recently. So I used to work for News UK, Murdoch's enterprise here, and one of the colleagues said to me, "You need to meet this woman, Jane." So Jane had come over back to the UK from Australia in 2015, 2016. She thought that she could just walk into a senior creative director's role because of all her achievements, her accolades, her reputation, but she didn't get a look in, not a single look in, and that's because she was a woman and she was in her late 50s. So I had been made redundant after the financial crash in 2009. I was a very senior position in a massive magazine organization. I knew that I was going to be made redundant a year prior because we'd been bought out by a company who were very linear in terms of their management style. And I also knew that I wasn't going to get a permanent job at my level on my salary. So I set up my own business as a consultant, going and doing any job that any organization in media could give me. I wasn't precious about the status. I wasn't precious about the title. And also I wasn't precious about the salary. I just needed to work. I was born to work, driven to work. It's part of who I am. So I was fortunate that I carved a reputation of working hard, delivering, being results orientated. And for 10 years, I did multiple jobs, multiple organizations, only got work through my reputation. And what set me off on my kind of vision with Jane to launch Visible Inc. was that every time there was a round of redundancies, the first people that got the chop were midlife women. And it just really, really pissed me off. And coupled with that, one of the last jobs that I had as I worked across a portfolio of financial magazines, really boring, really went over my head in terms of the content that they were talking about. So these are financial products and services, and they were being sold to IFAs, independent financial advisors, and the advertising market was financial institutions. An anathema to me, completely, grey area, knew nothing about, not remotely interested, felt I should get involved because I'm running them. And then I realized that I'm a midlife woman and I know nothing about financial products. Why do I not know? And that is and I felt ashamed. And then I realized that I didn't know because I was never educated as a woman. We were never targeted by the financial sector to be educated about them. And then I got really quite insulted and quite angry as to why I didn't know. And I'm not a stupid person. And then it was quite clear to me that it's a universal thing that midlife women didn't know anything about financial products and services. And then I was headhunted by Hearst, big publishing organization, to launch a platform called Financially Fabulous to try and educate midlife women about financial products and services. So I came to Jane angry about I guess, the lack of education about women and money. And Jane came on the basis that there are no creative women left in the creative world and how outrageous it was. So we both came together angry, but with a solution. And the solution was Visible Link, which is our strap line is to unleash the power of midlife women, which is very, very easy to stay, slightly more difficult to actually implement. And what was born out of that is the kind of the three pillars of our business, which is that we're activists. We want to change the social narrative behind midlife women and their place in society and the workplace. We want to change how midlife women are perceived from an advertising and a creative perspective, as in how campaigns target and speak to midlife women, because they're crap at doing it. And the reason why they're crap at doing it is there's no midlife women on the creative agency side, there's no midlife women on the media planning agency side, and there's no midlife women on the client side. So we have developed a creative consultancy where we collaborate with agencies and their clients to get the messaging right, because we own a very strong pound. Women are the decision makers for FMC, fast moving consumer goods. We decide on behalf of our children, our partners, and our parents. So we've got clout, we are decision makers, yet we are just ignored and we're invisible. And then the third pillar is that we've created Visible Start, which is, I think, how you and I connected, Jo, which is a returners program, getting midlife women back into the workplace.
It's quite extraordinary what you have both created in this short amount of time. So if we just go back to that first pillar that you mentioned then, it was all about changing that whole social narrative of midlife women. Share with us why it's really important that we nail this.
It is crucial. And what I want to share with your audience is that this isn't self-serving. This isn't that we are just, it's only about us midlife women. We are trying to carve the path so that the women in the slipstream behind us get an easier ride, that they get an easier run at it. If you think about it, so in the UK, the Equalities Act was in 1975. So women who are 70 now are the first generation to have experienced a long-term fulfilling career in the UK. I'm sure the same would reflect in Australia. Yeah. However, if we're being exited from business age 45, it's not exactly been a brilliant career in the last 20 years of that 70-year-old woman's life. The stats speak for themselves. In the UK, there are more adults over 60 than there are people under the age of 19. And that is just going to balloon up even more. If we are being exited from all industry at the age of 45, we know we're going to live longer. So my generation is easily going to live to 100. And we also know that because of our lack of understanding about financial products and services, we haven't saved enough. Because of the fact that we've been exited from business, our pension pots are a fraction of our male counterparts. So anyone with half a brain can understand you're living longer, you won't get into the workplace, and you haven't got enough money to retire with dignity on. All that means is that you're going to be retired into poverty and benefits, which means that you're going to be a burden on the government. If you just step back and think about that for a minute and think about how the population is growing in our demographic age bracket, then that is a tsunami of problems coming our way. Counterbalance that with research that has been proven, independent research, nothing to do with me, that has been proven that companies that have midlife women on their boards in senior positions, those businesses are commercially more viable and more successful and more profitable. So it's not that we're trying to do a musical Oliver moment saying, please, sir, give us a job, sir. Please be kind to us, sir. It's actually proven that if you do give us jobs, if you do infiltrate your workplace with those really scary people that are called midlife women, we will serve you better. We will add value to your organization. We will address any solutions that you need because we are very resilient, solution-orientated women who have had the experience, which is the best, which is the experience and wisdom of life. So break open the doors, let us come in, and by definition of doing that, we will change the social narrative and the perception of just how horrific we are. And actually, we are quite the counterbalance to that, that we're really genuinely wonderful and we can make a positive difference in the workplace.
Oh, I'll hire any midlife woman any day of the week. It's quite, yeah, when you put it all like that, it's quite incredible, isn't it? But the thing is, what I find even more incredible is that you have to sell that. That is something people don't recognize, or employees don't recognize, businesses don't recognize.
No.
So then your second pillar is revolving all around, as you said, collaborating and working with agencies and clients to see how they can work with the strongest demographic, as you explained, midlife women. We hold the purse strings a lot of the time. So can you tell us more about this one, and also that whole recent awareness campaign that absolutely went gangbusters when Jane created an ad using AI just to highlight this issue?
Well, I think the interesting thing, because it's interesting how she's had a bit of a, well, whenever you post something, you're going to get negative as well as positive. I mean, the positive has been, overwhelming, and since our pre-chat, the more posts that she's done, the traction that she's getting is phenomenal, and that kind of showcases her talent. But it serves three important points. So some of the backlash has been from people saying, oh, why are you using AI to generate images of midlife women? We're here, we're loud and proud, use us. This is what you should be doing. You're showcasing what your business is all about, yet you're using AI generated imagery. And our point is that there is no image of us out there. So if you go to stock photo libraries and you type in midlife women, what you will get, we love
Granny.
You'll get Helen Mirren, and it just drives us nuts because as much as we adore Helen Mirren, she's 75, 76. She's not. What we keep saying is that we are the Spice Girls generation. We are not the Golden Girls generation. And we would love to have the budget to go out there and take lots of fabulous photographs of fabulous midlife women so that we can start populating that stock imagery database and showcase just how wonderful we are. However, we are a two-woman operation with absolutely next to no money. And what Jane has done with the AI imagery serves the second point. She's proving that being crusty, 62 years of age that she is teaching the machines how to generate proper imagery of midlife women. When she first started, the midlife women image that came up was terrible. It was a granny with a pussy bow blouse, holding a teacup and a ginger biscuit. So she's kind of slightly progressed. Hey, so she's teaching the machines to get the imagery right. And she's also teaching the universe that old women can learn new shit. Go figure. We're not prehistoric dinosaurs that should just be let out to a field and shot. Isn't that just amazing? God, who'd have thought? So it's been brilliant for her to showcase A, the problem in terms of lack of image and identification of who we are and how we're represented in, online, and B, the fact that we can teach the machines that have been built by anyone that's not us to learn and get the imagery right and improve every single step of the way. And the third thing is that if we can create a show reel or an ad campaign on next to no budget that's got all this traction, that's had all this views on LinkedIn, it's scalable in terms of how many people have actually looked at this reel that she's produced, which is a few seconds long. Just imagine what we could do if we had a really big budget. We could blow it out the water in terms of how we are brilliant in terms of our communication, that we're brilliant in getting the campaign and marketing strategy and messaging right, and that we can make, everything right in terms of what a marketeer on a client side want. And what they want is brand loyalty, brand awareness, product shifting, and sexy messaging that actually resonates and gets the PR machine working on that. So we're a one-stop shop for that. Come and work with us. It's easy.
Yeah. And you're creating the conversation. That's what I'm loving, because all of a sudden people are talking about this as an issue, whether they're the ones who are the detractors or whether the ones who are supporting. And that's just gold.
It is gold. It is gold. And all credit to her. She is this amazing woman who's had lots of hard knocks in her life. And what she can come up with and be so inspirational. I mean, I couldn't do it. There's no way that I could do it. But I just think that she nails it in terms of what the issues are and what the problems are. And I think that, the younger generation, and I do include lots of women in this bracket, they think that it is all beyond us, but in terms of our ability to learn and pivot and learn something new. And the one thing that I would say is that if you hark back to my retail days, one of the jobs that I got, I worked in a fashion brand called Richard Shops, and I was 19 years old. I was in charge of the biggest store in central London. We generated £50,000 a week, which back in 1983 was a lot of money. I had a shoebox in a drawer. I did not have a cash till. There was no cash register. I morphed from that to working in an organization when I worked in the media side, where there was one computer that served a whole department. I pitched to my chief exec, can we get laptops in our organization and be the first pioneering team to go out and present all the stuff and the information that they needed on a laptop? We broke that through. We were around when the internet launched at the turn of this millennia. You cannot tell us that we're too old and long in the tooth to understand and learn new shit, because we can, and we're rather good at it.
I would love to be in a room where somebody did say or challenge you on just that. I'd pay to be there, Jackie, just to watch you let rip.
I'd sell tickets.
and then thirdly, let's just talk a little bit more about Visible Start, because that is an incredible returners program, and that's been a success to get women back into the workforce. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, it's such a humbling thing. I mean, it's very moving in terms of what we do. So we started this in pandemic, and I won't go into massive context, but suffice to say that we got the chief exec, the global chief exec of WPP. WPP is the biggest advertising agency in the world. We managed to connect with him. We managed to pitch the idea. He had a problem that he had a staff retention issue, that he got graduates to come in. They would be trained up in all things sexy, digital, social media in his organization, big organization, lots of different businesses under his umbrella. They would get trained up, they'd work for a year, and then they would get nicked by the competition and then double the salary. So he had a retention problem. And what we said, let us help you counterbalance that. Let us develop a program where we train midlife women, and you can ring fence some jobs that they can then apply for, not guarantee that they get them. And maybe we can showcase that what you'll get is employee loyalty, because these women would be so grateful that you've given them a job. Also, it helps in your DEI strategy in terms of leveling up, because I know a lot of companies, it's very much on their radar. And so he agreed, and he signed off to fund the pilot within 48 hours. We do joke that basically it was his lunch money for the year, but because he's in lockdown, he couldn't entertain anyone, so he just diverted the money to us. And so Visible Start was born, and we worked with a company called BFS who did programs because we were not experienced in that at all. So they helped us in terms of to launch it. And this is what happened. Jane did all the creative in terms of driving the recruitment of midlife women to attend this program. So she came up with some great creative concepts. Because of my background working on the media owner side, working for magazines and national press and radio and outdoor, we got lots of organizations to give us free advertising space to promote this because they understood it was a good thing to do. It was a good campaign to support. And we asked, the criteria for women to join this is that they had to be a woman and they had to be 45 plus. They did not have to have any experience in advertising whatsoever. They might have just been made redundant, or they could have been out of the workforce for 20 years. So the remit was broad and wide in terms of what their criteria was. When we asked them to sign up to Visible Start, we asked them how they felt about their situation, about being in this position that they're trying to find work, and yet they were failing. And it's no surprise to your audience at all that the word cloud was extremely negative, so that they felt that they were invisible, alone, isolated, low self-esteem, low self-confidence, broken, washed up, wiped out, spent, damaged, miserable, unhappy, angry, furious, pissed off. And we designed the course. Obviously, lockdown had to be online, and that served us well, because the really important thing for these women is that it was free to join. There is no money that changes hands from these women. An awful lot of them were on benefits, so they couldn't afford that. And also the fact that it was online, it meant that they didn't have to travel anywhere, which also, was a good thing for them. So it was completely and utterly funded by the sponsor, which was WPP. So each session that we had, we ran it 3 times. We repeated it. So morning, afternoon, and evening, because we understood that these women might be unemployed, but they weren't exactly sitting at home twiddling their thumbs doing nothing. And we also made sure that each session was recorded, so that we created a platform, which I'll tell you about in a minute, so that they could go back and revisit that should they need to. The way that the program is structured is that it's divided into 3 parts. So the first part, it was, and I facilitated every single session, so I was exhausted by the time we finished because there are 53 of them. But the first part of these modules, the first third, is that it's focused on the women. So the first part is that I give them a virtual hug, and I tell them that they're fabulous, and I explain to them that I'm going to show them just how fabulous they are. So my job was to give them that hug. My job was to make them start to believe in themselves again. And this is from a default setting where these women did not believe that at all in any way, shape, or form. And it's very interesting in terms of the visual journey that we see. So obviously we do it on Zoom. And to begin with, their videos are switched off, their mics are switched off, they will only communicate through the chat. And it's lovely to see that over 8 weeks, which is how long the course lasted, to see them at the end on fire, videos on, shouting loud and proud. So you can see psychologically just how brilliant and transformative this program had been for them. So we do the basic things in terms of transferable skills. We have a professional life coach to come in and to explain to them about imposter syndrome, about self-saboteurs, about how we can get them to believe in themselves, how we create a brand me workshop so that because they've got to learn how to sell themselves again. They've got to learn how to put themselves out there, to believe that they are that right person for that job, as opposed to thinking, well, I've only got 5 out of the 6 criteria, I'm not going to bother to apply. How to believe that they got to dispense with the default setting that I'm not worthy, I can't do it, I'm not going to try. The middle third of the program is whatever the sponsor wants. So in this case, WPP did lots of different sessions saying, this is how an advertising agency works. And then they would get volunteers from within the organization loads of them that would come in and talk about their department, what their day in the life looks like, what the skill sets are that they're looking for. And we did workshops and focused on more of them being able to ask, you know, pertinent and salient questions. And then the final third is focusing back on them again. So learning new elements of the workplace with people who train the staff at WPP anyway. So they focused on things like neurodiversity and allyship, and getting back into the workplace and just the nuances and the new age of working how they do. It's very different than if you've been out of the workplace for 10 years. And then we also had Microsoft come and do free Excel training. We had LinkedIn come and do free profile building training. We had women that we did power hour look and learn lunches. So these are midlife women, not necessarily in advertising, but had senior jobs, and they came and story told their career journey. And some of them had, you know, tough times, but it gave my cohort, my women, inspiration and a sense of understanding that if that woman can achieve it, then maybe I can too. And then we also had the volunteers at WPP where they would do CV workshops, interview workshops, speed networking, speed interviewing. And then we also then got involved charities. So we got charities that would give free mentoring. An amazing charity in the UK called SmartWorks, who would give you free interview training. And if you got an interview, a free brand new outfit. And if you got the job, a free capsule wardrobe, which I just still blows me away to this day. And then at the very end, we hold an in-person live event where these women can kind of, you know, give each other hugs. A lot of people came up and pinched me just to check that I was real. The most valuable thing that we did is that we created a platform called Visible Society, where these community is a safe space that they can reach out, share their problems, share their journeys, share their stories. That community is now 1,500 strong and counting. And it's a safe place where they just feel that they're part of this community. So what we've done is that over 30 women have got jobs within WPP since we launched. Many more have got jobs elsewhere as a consequence of attending the program. I cry a lot every time a woman gets a job. My husband looks at me, I'm sobbing, and he goes, has another woman got a job? And yes, they have. So it's very humbling and rewarding. But what all these women have said, that as a consequence of attending this program, that we have given them hope. And that's very important.
Oh, that is just so very special. Goosebumps listening to you talking about exactly how it all works and unfolds. So can it be a rinse and repeat program? Yes. That other organizations can now, because you've got the proof, you've got the data, yes. All the evidence is there for people. So is that what the next step is going to be for?
Massively so. Massively so. So I'm very excited about this because for several reasons. It's massively scalable. We can repeat, rinse and repeat, and say, we can set this up in Australia. We can just help other midlife women out there who've got connections with chief people officers. These are the people that you have to target: HR directors, chief people officers, to run this in Australia. It is a cost-efficient way of doing it. What we say to sponsors is that if you recruit 20 women out of each program that we run, then we are as expensive as getting a recruitment agency to find and pay the agency fee for those women. So we are cost neutral in that respect. But what the sponsor get is that deep engagement with our community way after the program is finished. We do not stop after 8 weeks and say to the women, good luck, off you go, bothered, happy days, and move on. We continually, my team, I've got 2 women who work with me. One was a Visible Start alumni who we just adore, called Sonia, and Maria used to be my PA 20 years ago, and for some reason she thinks she'd like to work with me again. So I've got 2 women who are passionate about connecting with the community. We do one-to-ones with them. We constantly reassure them if they've got interviews. We do interview prep work. We polish up their CVs or tweak it if they feel uncomfortable about it. So all of these things I can be replicated in any country. We want to work across all sectors. We just chose advertising because it's what Jane and I know best. but we can scale it. We can run tons of visible start programs a year. We do all the heavy lifting. The sponsor does very little of the legwork. The volunteer, and the other thing I forgot to say is that the volunteers at WPP feel so invested in this program. They love what we're doing. They love the fact that their company supports us, and they love the fact that they can give something back. So that ticks a lot of goodwill elements, as well as obviously the DEI factor, and it gets a lot of PR. It gets a lot of good press. So absolutely rinse and repeat. Absolutely any sector. People ask me, I'm probably following up on a question that you're going to ask me in terms of what does the future hold. The future holds what I want is to be made redundant, because I don't want this to still be an interesting idea and concept. I want it to be bedded in as part of the DNA of any organization, that recruiting midlife women is a given, not an interesting concept.
Mm. So if you could have that magic wand, and that's the case, you want to make sure that you become redundant, how do you get there? Like, how does this happen? How do you get from knowing it works, having a sponsor company, knowing that it works as well? How do you get it out there? Like, what would you do if you could wave a wand? What would that be?
If I could wave a wand, I would just get all the chief people officers and, the bean counters into a room and lock the door and say, you're not leaving until you sign up for this, because it's, nothing that I'm telling you is a bad idea. Nobody comes up to me and says, this hasn't got legs, it's just not going to work. So we feel that industries are a bit like sheep. They're a bit like football fans, that once you get one person chanting, once you get one person doing it, then like sheep, the others will follow. And so what my plea is to other organizations is, don't be a sheep. Be the first person that does that chant. Come and speak to us, because we can show you that this really, as you said there, Joe, the stats are there, the proof of concept works, the engagement is there, the community is there, that the ambition of the women are there. Two of the women in WPP that were recruited via our program are award winners. One is 62 years of age. So it's our the chief exec, Mark Reed. He has said, I now realize that Visible Start has given me the competitive edge. Nobody is saying it's crap, don't bother. Nobody is saying that. So you kind of think, why does there need to be a magic wand? Because it's a bit of a duh moment. It's just like, why aren't you doing this? You've got to ask yourself, why aren't you doing this? Because not only are you helping your business, not only are you helping society, you are helping the governments of your country not having to divest so much money to send to benefits for these women, because you've made them redundant to 45 and they're going to live to 100. And why not invest in that so that your business thrives, that you've given these women opportunity so that they can retire in dignity? What's not to like about that? If you are a younger generation, think about how you would like to see the older generation serve out the rest of their lives. In poverty, miserable, or happy and invigorated and energized, because you're going to be that demographic sometime soon. What we say, because we often go out and talk, and we say to the younger generation, we have been in your shoes, you have not been in ours. Don't think this is not going to happen to you, because the one thing I can guarantee you, you're going to get old and then you're going to die. So they're the two facts of life. Do you want to do that in a great way, or do you want to just look and see how much we're struggling, and you just close your eyes and think, well, it's not going to happen to me? It is. If you do get to be a midlife woman and you haven't been made redundant, you are in the minority, not the majority. So make a difference.
Oh, you need a more people to hear you speak about this topic, Jacquie. And I'm not quite. Have you got plans on how you can have your voice heard more? I mean, I know podcast is one way, but
we do.
Industry.
Yeah, we do get, as I said, we have been invited on conferences and events. I mean, it is a slow burn, but I do hope that it's more and more galvanized now, that there are more opportunities, that more companies are thinking about the DEI element. And it would just be nice if we can break through to another industry. I'm focusing on the finance sector. I'm focusing on the pharmaceutical sector. We just need, that one pioneering in that sector to grab this, and then hopefully more and more people will sign up to it.
Yes, and it's an issue that's happening not only in the UK, but as you said, around the world. All countries are experiencing, and something needs to be done. So that's basically where we'll look at some of the wrap-up questions now. Jacquie, you've spoken about your dreams, your ambitions for your business. What about more on a personal note? What are some of the more personal goals that you're setting for yourself going forward?
Oh, that's an interesting question. What are my personal goals? I have to say that I really hope that the memoir that we talked about earlier, I hope to be able to do more good in that respect. So what I would like is to develop a podcast where I can actually talk to more women who have experienced what I've experienced with my mother, and showcase how you can cut through and survive that. So I'd really enjoy interviewing other women and to hear their stories, because life is all about storytelling, isn't it? So I'm sure that there are lots of other women out there who've probably had more horrendous time than I've had, and it'd be great to showcase how they've survived, because it is surviving, and how they've achieved good things as a consequence of tough times that they've been through. In terms of the business, I would love to scale Visible Start so that it's a global thing, that there are lots of Jacquie Duckworths out there that are running it, and that they can all shout loud and proud about their success, so we become award winning. I have to say that we've been shortlisted for an award, very prestigious award in the UK. It's from a institute called the Learning Performance Institute. So we are shortlisted, which is a massive achievement. So I'm very, very, very proud about that one. So I'd like us to win awards. I'd like us to be noticed for the great work that we do. And personally, if I can spearhead that in any way, then I'd love to do. And a more personal level, I want to be able to reflect back and feel that we really did make a difference. Because if we make a difference in society, then obviously personally for me, that's a massive, massive achievement. But it's not about self-glory. I mean, the one thing that you will know, working on this is that these women, there is a bit of adulation that goes on, which just does make me laugh, because I do say to them, I'm just like you. I'm just a midlife woman that was made redundant and try to shout loud and proud that I'm not a washed up old hag, that I've got so much to offer. So it's lovely to be genuinely connected with these women, and they can realize that I'm nothing special. I'm just like them, but just wanting to do good and make sure that that we can pass on the dignity element to the next generation, so they don't have to fight so hard.
So life isn't slowing down for you then. In fact, it's probably ramping up. If I asked your husband, he'd probably be saying, you're probably busier now than you have been ever. What do you do to wind down? Because it's a lot you're doing. It's a lot that you're going to be doing for yourself personally when you're looking at your memoir and the podcasting, but it's also the goals and the dreams that you've got for your business. So how do you wind down after all of this?
I find it very easy. It's not difficult at all.
Good. Good.
I drink less, because I used to drink an awful lot more. So I drink less, but I still I'm a champagne girl or a rosé wine girl. So quite happy to have a couple of glasses at the end of a long day. I do exercise a lot because I was very, very sporty as a child. It was a good release for me, and I've had lots of injuries over the years. So exercising is really important for me. So I swim, I bike ride, I go to the gym, and that's my me time. So that's really important. But in terms of winding down, I'm a couch potato. I love watching tons of stuff on Netflix. I'm a podcast bunny, so I listen. I'm a massive true crime fan, so I love listening to podcasts about true crime. I love watching documentaries. I do watch a lot of stuff that I get very emotional quite a lot. So I'm sure you've got Bake Off in Australia. Do you have Bake Off in Australia?
Possibly. I
Okay,
couldn't tell.
so it's like MasterChef, but for bakers.
Yeah.
I cry watching that. I cry watching a lot of stuff. My kids think I'm a wuss. But yeah, winding down is fine. We are culture vultures. So one of the great things about living in central London is that I have access to all the museums, all the art galleries, all the theatres. So I love going out and being stimulated that way. I feel that everybody should have an opinion about arts. Being subjective is really important about those kind of things. And I enjoy, eating out, having a nice time. So winding down is a very, very important factor. I think it's really important. So I absolutely find the time, and I find it very easy. So don't feel that I'm stressed out because I'm not. I have a good time unwinding.
Well, I will sleep easier tonight knowing that you wind down very easily, and you've got quite a menu of things that you like to do with the winding down as well, which is even better to hear. Jacquie, what do you enjoy about this time of life, and what are you looking forward to in the future?
Well, good grief. What do I enjoy about this time of life? As Jane often says, we've got no more fucks to give. So I think what I loved about I will quote her. I mean, I did say she's old, but Helen Mirren we love because she says, what would she tell her younger self? She says that she'd tell more people to fuck off. And I and
Yeah.
I and I think that it's and I mean that in the nicest possible way. I believe that you spend so much of your younger self appeasing and pleasing too many people that are irrelevant. I'll bring back a story that was quite interesting. So my elder sister, who I'm very, very close to, we're very, very, very different people, but we love each other deeply. And when we had to move my mother to out of a retirement home into a dementia unit. And one of the things that happened is that all the people in the retirement home thought that my sister and I were evil because we were moving into a dementia unit and we were nasty and blah, 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 blah. And my sister said, I want to, well, after we'd done the deed, my sister said, I want to go back to these people in the retirement home and explain to them, just what mother is and just why we had to do it. And I said, why do you want to do that? And she goes, well, I just think it's really important that they know, what the reality is. And I said, why? Why do they need to know? Why do you give a shit about what somebody else in a retirement home in the middle of nowhere thinks about what you did with your mother and why you had to move her into dementia unit? And you can just see that her default position was that she just didn't like people to think badly of her. And I said to her, I couldn't give a fuck what anybody thinks about me. And I think that you've got to just take a step back and ask yourself, why does it bother you so much? So I don't feel I feel that now in this part of my life, I'm deeply comfortable in being who I am. I'm absolutely not perfect. You can, as I said, quiz the kids, they can explain to you why I'm not. But what I do know is that I wake up every morning and I'm very happy being Jacquie Duckworth. And I think that that is a really, really nice place to be. And in terms of what I want from the future, I want to keep well. I want to keep fit. I don't want to. I don't want to be a problem for other people. Obviously, my family. I don't want to be a problem for them. I would love to reflect back and see how great my children are doing and how great a start in life they've had because they've had half decent people who are their parents. And I just think that the world is a shithole at the moment, and I just hope that there are more people that we can connect with that tries to make it a nicer, happier, more vibrant place.
Hear, hear. So a final question then, Jacquie. It's almost a reflection of building on what you were just talking about. What do you hope 80-year-old Jacquie is going to say about current day Jacquie?
Um, I would hope, well, if I've got the medical traits of both my parents, I won't be here because they both had dementia and I ain't going to be sticking around for that. If I don't have dementia and if I'm 80 years old, first of all, I'm going to rock it. There's just no question about that. I'm going to be one of the most glamorous in your face 80-year-olds who will be totally outrageous, that probably my kids will only Zoom call me and probably mute me just to make sure that I don't misbehave any more than I would be. I would reflect back, and I would reflect back on myself, and the advice that I would probably say is that I'm delighted that you kept going, that you kept fighting. I'm delighted that you did make a difference, that you have positively enhanced like-minded women like yourself so that they can equally feel great about who they are, and that in some small way that you can sit back and see that society has embraced you as a rocking, fabulous 80-year-old. That's what I'd like.
Well, I wish and I hope that that's going to be the case and you get that opportunity to do exactly that, Jacquie. I'm in awe, and you are making a difference in the world. And thank you for that on behalf of all the midlife women, not only here in Australia, but in the UK where you're doing all of this work. You're making the world a better place. And we need more women like you to lead us into this area. So thank you. And thank you for being a guest on Redefining Midlife.
Oh, it's been a complete joy and an honor. And I'm very, very chuffed that you asked me in the first place. So thank you, Jo.
Pleasure. Thanks so much, Jacquie. Thanks so much for spending your time with me today. I hope you feel inspired to make the next chapter of your life the best one yet. And remember to share this episode with someone else who would love it, and connect with me on Instagram or LinkedIn at Jo Clark Coaching. All the links and the details from today's episode are in the show notes or at joclarkcoaching.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please follow or subscribe this show on your favorite podcast app and leave a 5-star rating and review. This helps more midlife women find these empowering conversations. I can't wait to chat with you next week. Until then, take care and keep creating a life that you love.